Hello again. This is Pat Morris, your host for the PM Talk Show. We're out here at FPTV 17, Miller Lake in Hammond, and we are yet bringing information to you, the public, on activities that are going on in the surrounding area and especially with our Tangipahoa Parish school system. We have with us today Pastor Jimmy A. Richardson, who ran for office. Of course, we all know he did not make the runoff, but he's still in the House, and he will be in the House until the end of this desegregation case. I want to welcome you again to our show, Pastor.
Glad to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
This holiday season.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's starting off to be a good one with the meetings that we're having now.
Right.
The first one was last night at Kentwood, and give us your take on that meeting.
Well, I think the general public in Kentwood has been being led blindly, and I think a lot of them, their eyes came open last night.
Right.
They can see what really is the true picture and what's the possibilities that's going to be happening in Kentwood if they don't lift their voices and make their requests be known.
Exactly, because once unitary status is granted, what happens then?
Once unitary status is granted, that is it. I mean, you ask now and get it now. Otherwise, once unitary status is granted, they will go back to what they've been doing before the federal courts were overseeing them.
Exactly.
And Kentwood has been historically been denied. And you can rest assured that's probably going to happen in the future if they don't make some decisions right now before this case is closed.
The group of people that were in attendance at the meeting last night, the parents I want to reference to now, what do you feel their take was on seeing a new school built in Kentwood? And I can't think of the term the attorney used, but you know what it is, and would you let them know? Attorney Nelson Taylor said the type of school he wanted to see.
Attorney, when the compliance officer, the new compliance officer, met with us, the Florida Parish Ministerial Alliance several weeks ago, Attorney Taylor put it on the floor, on the north end of the parish. He'd like to see a regional high school, right, where all the students from the north end are at a regional high school. And some things everything else had to be configured or reconfigured to meet that change. And I think it's a doable thing. I think it ought to be done. I think it's what should have been done from the very beginning. We had the community or persons from the community petition to the board and had another school built on that north end when it should never have been built. Right. But to bring about quality education for every child on that north end of the parish, doesn't make a difference what part of that north end they are, you are living in. They're living in that we can put a quality education there. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. The other magnet schools, the IB program, and all the other programs. And I think every parent on the north end of this parish the expectation from the school system is that we provide for their children the best quality education, bar none.
Right. When you look at the ministers on the north end of the parish, of course some of them are members of the Ministerial Alliance. What do you feel their take is on seeing a new school built in Kentwood?
Well, you had three pastors that was represented there last night. Myself, Pastor Brown, Joshua Brown, and Pastor Terry James. And I think for the most part, just like in anything when there's a change, you got some people who are a little leery about it. They will say, well, how can that happen? But when you got the majority of them, and I think right now the majority of the pastors are on board with making provisions for every child in the north end of that parish to get a quality education. They can see it now. We need to bring us together. You bring all the kids from that north end together, you got a regional high school with all those offerings that we hear that are happening on the south end, on this end of the parish, they can be happening up there in Kentwood as well.
Right, and that's something that's never really happened. And the performing arts school that was placed at Kentwood High, who's responsible for that?
Well, you have to blame the present school board member, Ms. Smith. Everybody that has the finger on the pulse of things knew that a performing arts school was not going to be a setting that's going to be attractive to other members of that community.
Right.
You know, give credit to the South End, and I have to say Mr. Duncan and others down here in the South, they did the right things. They put the right types of programs in place. Roseland Elementary, they did the right thing. They put a Montessori in place. And down here in the South, you had the magnet programs, the IB programs, and the other Montessori programs. Those kinds of educational programs will attract parents that want a quality education. A performance arts magnet school, theme school, was a failure from the very beginning. Matter of fact, I've done some little research, and I think my numbers are right. I don't think I'm too far off. Out of 240 children that are finished in that magnet program, that performing arts magnet program in Kentwood, I think they've only graduated 2 out of 240. That's less than 0.0008%. Yeah, which means it's a failure. Right. So the school board can't say that they have this program in place to address the needs of the community. They are not addressing the needs of that community. Right. They're not addressing the needs of the black community, let alone the entire community.
Right, right. When you look at Roseland Montessori, I'm hearing that black kids are being sent from Roseland to either Chesbro or Spring Creek. I don't know which, but why is that happening? And why is it there's such an undercurrent with it happening? A lot of people don't know about it.
And I think that was one of the reasons you answered the question. They don't want anybody to know about it. What you have is an improved setting, but that setting could have been improved in 2006, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and all the way back. What's different? That whatever that is different, needs to be happening at every school. Right. My grandbaby is attending the Montessori at Roseland, and the racial population has changed, has shifted. You know, I think you have a large percentage now of whites that are attending that Montessori school in Roseland, and they're driving their kids there. And you can go there in the afternoon when they're picking up their children. My wife picks up our grandbaby. She has to get there early, because if she doesn't, the pickup line is probably a mile long. Oh, wow. And the point there is, if you offer the right things, people will come. Right. I'm not going to beat that down, but if you offer the right things, people come. Of course, now, I think that the Roseland community should be given some justification why the other kids are being shipped to, bused to Chesbro or Amite. And there's a large percentage of them being bused to Chesbro or Amite. No justification there now. Of course, now, if they're talking about how well Roseland's performing, they should also be talking about how well those children who left Roseland are performing. Right. You know, now a true measurement of success is that those children are performing better where they are. But we only hear about what's happening at Roseland. We don't hear about what's happening at the places where these children are being bused to.
Has it ever been said, if it has, I haven't heard it, how they gauge success, say at the Montessori school? Because when the numbers came out, they had grown by some 41% in a year's time.
Right.
So how do they come up with those numbers? Do you know?
For the Montessori school?
For any school. How do they, but especially Montessori, since...
You talking about performance or?
Their school performance score.
Well, that's a little bit more, I guess, I'm not that close enough to it, but they're using the children that are coming in and their performance. I guess they have some kind of way they're measuring and saying that they're performing better on the various instruments that are used to measure performance in the schools. I'm not privy to all of that.
One thing I do know that is certain, wherever you have fully certified teachers, you're going to have kids that perform better because they've taken all of the training. They've become certified to do what needs to be done in a child's educational future. How do you feel about, and it's kind of a rhetorical question, but some people need to get this concept, their mind wrapped around seeing certified teachers in every class?
It is a problem in our parish. and it's an ongoing problem in our parish. And it's one I think that when you kind of calibrate my mind a little bit, when I step back to when I was on the school board, there are many teachers, and particularly in predominantly black schools, that weren't certified. So it's kind of difficult to have a high performing school when you don't have a high performing teacher. You know, you got to have the high performing teacher, and that has been the mainstay in predominantly black schools. Matter of fact, it came up last night in the meeting in Kentwood. They wanted the candidate for the school board, Eric Brumfield, asked for numbers. You know, how many certified teachers do we have here at the school? How many non-certified teachers we have? And typically that happens at a predominantly black school. So if you got non-certified teachers, and chances are the children are not going to perform as well. Nothing against those teachers. Sometimes they may need some special programs to improve some areas that may be weak in, and particularly on the elementary level, because they teach all subjects. You know, the sciences, the math, they teach all the subjects. They may be good in English and reading, but weak in science and math. So when those kids come forward from the lower grades to the higher grades, they got a weak science background. And I'm sure that there's some ways that we can invest money to improve that, to prove the teacher's ability to teach the concepts. That takes some special training. We need to do more than that. But of course now, when you have a teacher that's not a performer, a high performer, Ms. Morris, I'm just, in no other way to say it, you don't keep them. You find somebody else that can perform.
Right. Well, we're getting ready to go for a break now. We'll be back with part 2. This is so interesting, and we want to come back and talk about certified versus non-certified. We're going for a break, and we'll be right back.
Here's your check. Oh, you got it. You know, since I got rid of my car, I really enjoy walking.
Okay. God, no.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates.
Oh, you're home early.
You live with your mom?
That'll set your game back a few years. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to the PM Talk Show. This is Pat Morris, your host. We have with us today Pastor Jimmy Richardson, former school board member. He did run for office, and he's still in the House, you all, and we're still fighting to get what we need. We were talking about regional high schools, certified versus non-certified teachers, and unitary status. Can you explain to the audience what it means when it said that the school system is trying to reach unitary status?
Unitary status, there are several areas that the federal court is overseeing and the school board in. And if in those particular areas, for example, administrations, and then in administration, that if they have a certain ratio, black, white administrators. Same thing with the teachers, same thing with the facilities. The facilities are conducive to learning. And this facility is not conducive to learning, the school board has to make some changes in the physical plant to actually bring that school up to what would be accepted by the federal court. Busing, athletics, extracurricular activities. If all those things are not, that doesn't seem to be any disparities when it comes to black and white in those particular areas, and they can prove, the school board can prove that they are acting in good faith, and there is no discrimination, excluding persons from any of those, including even hiring of teachers. We were talking about certified teachers just a few minutes ago. Once they get all those things in place, and they have them in place, and they prove to the court that they are being fair and just and equitable, and they do that for 3 years, then the school board will reach what's known as unitary status. And in unitary status, they will be observed for 3 years. After 3 years, then the school board will withdraw. This federal court will draw their oversight over them, and then they can go and operate the system like any other system in the country.
Yeah. So it's really important that whatever is going to be done in their reaching unitary status has to actually be done before the judge will release his hand or his jurisdiction over them as a school. So that's why you see a lot of things having to go to the courts before approval.
When you look at what happened last night in
Right.
Kentwood. Now Kentwood is at a critical juncture.
Right.
If Kentwood, the Kentwood proper, the leadership in Kentwood, the people of Kentwood don't make a decision about what they want to do in Kentwood, for example, we're talking about the regional high school. If they don't make a decision that that's what they want, then once unitary status is reached, it's over for them. And everybody knows, and I said last night and I say here this morning, they're spending $2 million on an athletic facility at Kentwood. And I told the people last night, that's just slapping paint on the wall. It's easy to spend $2.5 million versus spending $20 million to build a new school. Right. So if they can placate the folks and have them believe that we're going to keep our school, that school can't. And I cannot see how it's going to stay open in the future. At some point, you have 7 through 12, you have 300 some kids. It's just not economically feasible. Right. They're going to close it. Right. So the people in Kentwood has to rise up and say, well, we want a school in Kentwood. Well, if you build a school in Kentwood, you got to build a regional school in Kentwood where everybody in Kentwood is going to it, where everybody in the North End can benefit from it. So if they rise up and ask for that, and they go to their lawyer, which is the plaintiff's lawyer, Attorney Taylor, and petition to him, this is what we want. That, of course, the parents, the community of Kentwood have moved once. They moved from O.W. Dillon to Kentwood High. Right. And now, if we reach unitary status, as we look at it today, and that's what they're going to do, to try and make it look good before the federal court, we have a theme school, magnet school, which is failing. Nobody's talking about how much it's failing. You have a school that's housing 300 kids. It's just not feasible there to keep it. But soon as unitary status is reached, that school will close, right, and they will be shipped to another site.
And that was somewhat alluded to when that same question came up last night, when board member Brett Duncan made the comment, well, we're not looking at closing it anytime soon because we got to monitor it. We got to be monitored for 3 years. So, right. Okay, I'm thinking, are you saying that after 3 years, if nothing is there, it's going to close? That's what that says to me.
That's exactly
and
what
I'm sure it said the same thing to a lot of parents there.
That's what I took away from that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But just looking at the climate with the parents there, what do you think that climate was like?
I think the people's eyes are coming open.
Right.
They really are. They're finally seeing past that false facade that's been erected up in Kentwood, saying everything is all right. You know, and I'll take you back, Ms. Morrison. I did that last night, and that's not crying in my milk here. Yeah. But the rally cry back in 2006 against me, and one of the things that caused me to be defeated was that I was going to close Kentwood High School. And those words never came out of my mouth. And last night in that meeting, and I have to say it here on television, somebody asked the question, who said it? It was Miss Smith that said it. She said, I was going to close Kentwood High School. And that was all over Kentwood. I never said that. Right. Those words never came out of my mouth.
A lot of times when you have those types of things that go on in politics, at the end of the day, who hurts the most? The children. That's right. Exactly. And what we want to make sure is that this kind of stuff would never happen again. Right. So when you look at student assignment, one thing with unitary status, it lets us know that no one should be able to walk into a class, into a school and tell if it's majority white or majority black. That shouldn't happen, but we still have that, and we brought up the numbers, and if anybody is interested in reading the action plan, it's on the school board's website at last check. Go to www.tangischools.org and you can read it yourself, but when you look at pages, I think it's 8 and 9 or 9 or 10, it gives a chart with those percentages of schools that they say are at that pretty much 60-40 ratio. And they're using a plus or minus 15% of the parish-wide total, or a plus or minus 10% at the school total. Now, I want the NAACP to question that, because it gives, I think, a little bit too much leeway, and they're saying it's a federal regulation, but the court order says 60-40. Right. And that represents the population in Tangipahoa Parish when the lawsuit was first filed in the first place. So when you look at the places that they're talking about moving kids from, say for instance, Magazine Street MC Moore, you're looking at right at 200 kids that are going to move. That's not counting the kids on Morris Road that's going into Laranja schools. When you look at Hammond West Side, where you have 3 majority black neighborhoods, all of those kids will have to go to Ponchatoula schools. 300 coming from Champ Cooper. Where else? Kids from Laranja are going to have to come off of Bell Road to Amite High. Do you feel like there's a better way to do this?
I'm not sure if there's a better way to do it or not, but let me say it this. This is a thought that was passing my mind as you were talking. I had a conversation with a gentleman that I was doing business with, get my campaign literature together, sent out. And he had his kids in private school. And of course now when all the changes were offered, the choices that were offered here on the South End, opened up a door for him to come back, leave a private school to come to a public school. Well, and he told me, he said, I had spent, he said, $120,000 on private school for his child. Now, given that fact, that particular parent, husband and wife, made a decision for their child or children to come back to public school. Why? Because they had something that they wanted for their children. They had something to offer. Now, what we need to do across this parish, and if the quality of education, and I use my little pet peeve word, Ms. Morris, here it comes. If education is ubiquitous, right, then it makes a difference where you go. Right. If you get on the bus on the northmost east corner of this parish, when that child gets on that bus and arrives at that school, that parent knows that child's going to get a quality education. Right. Now, the community will attend that school. The community will attend the school that you just alluded to, if everybody has the equal access to quality education. Right. That goes for black and white. I think the white parents who are out of the system, they're out because they don't think that they can get a quality education. Right. That needs to happen, starting with a superintendent who knows how to lead the system. Right.
And I think that's something that's being looked into right now, because if we can't get the head straight, how will the body be straight? Can't do it. That's the bottom line. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today, and we hope something was said that will help people. Certainly, we want you to come to the remaining 2 community meetings. One will be tonight, Tuesday, November 2nd at Independence, and the other from 6 to 8, and tomorrow night it will be at Hammond High from 6 to 8, talking about the action plan that the judge has ordered them to do. The action plan is not a motion. It's simply something that the school system must do now to let the judge know how far you have gotten with Order 866, Order 876, and Order 956. I want to know, Judge LaMelle wants to know what you have done to satisfy my orders. And once you do that, then we'll start talking about what we can live with, what we can't live with. So we want to thank everybody for continuing to join us. Thank you, Pastor Richardson, for coming and sharing. And
thank you for inviting me again.
Yeah, I will be, because I know you're in the house. And with you in the house, I know that the truth is going to be made known. Thank you for continuing to join the show. This is Pat Marsh, your host, saying have a happy holiday season. Be blessed. Knowledge is powerful, and it does matter. Thank you, and God bless.